we live? It's spinning. It's spinning. Hi there. Nice to see everyone. Let me grab the store. Welcome to another hanging out with Toby situation on a Tuesday night. Nice to see you all. I've got several things to cover tonight. I hope that this is a better alternative than other things that are going on major media right now. Who knows though? Who knows? Got my Dynasty shirt on, my favorite shirt. Got my favorite hat on. I'm pretty easy to please, honestly. Well, what's new? What's new with me? Not much. Fall is here, it feels like, and that's awesome. My favorite time of the year, harvest season. If you're outdoors, harvest season in general. It's cool. I like that. I don't like freezing cold, and I don't like burning hot. So fall's pretty good. We're going to talk about a few things today. First of all, I want to say that how you store your cannabis is important. And so we're going to talk about a few of those things. First of all, I really don't believe in those packets that you throw into. Hey guys, those packets you throw into like Boveda that are, claimed to hold your humidity at a certain level. Anecdotally, I haven't tested this like in scientifically or whatever, but anecdotally, these packets absorb terpenes, absorb smell, because there's kind of an exchange through them. And then when the moisture goes in there, if terpenes are floating around in your jar, they get sucked up into the Boveda. They're really good if you have cannabis that has gone too far. You have flowers that are just too dry, and they're crumbling and all that sort of thing. The Boveda packs to rescue something are pretty fantastic, but never put quality herb into a container with those Boveda packs. It's just a bad idea. That's my 2 cents. Other people will swear by it, but that's kind of the hilariously frustrating thing about cannabis is that everyone's had different experiences, and there's so many varieties and conditions and everything that play into all of the stuff we experience, from the taste, flavor, smell, mental effects, physical effects. But in my opinion, I don't use those things. I wouldn't use those things unless I was just trying to save some herb that got too dry. So second thing is, there is, like, in my mind, a like best practice jar, and that is the 16-ounce wide mouth mason jar. It's about that tall, that big around, and it has a wide mouth. And so the whole point is that the problem with a regular mason jar is, unless you're using small mason jars, you're stacking a lot of herb on top of a lot of flowers on top of each other, and that's going to reduce your quality maybe a little teeny bit. But all that push, even dry, all the flowers knocking together, all that, not a good idea. So the other thing is, if it has a narrower mouth, like use say like a spaghetti jar or something along those lines, you kind of have to beat it up to get it out, and that's less than ideal. So the brown 16-ounce wide mouth mason jars are, in my mind, best practice for storing your herb. So that's what I got on that. They're kind of expensive though. They're like $5 a piece. You can buy an 8-pack for $38 or something. So, but the idea is you're never really going to have to buy that again. So, I think it's worth the investment. Maybe you can find them on sale at your hobby store, or your hardware store, your outdoor store. They a lot of times have canning sections, or your big box store. You find them on sale. You might be able to get them for $30 for 8 of them, which makes them pretty inexpensive. And for what the quality that they preserve in your cannabis, it's worth it. I think also if you can get the clear glass ones, the brown ones are more expensive. If you get clear glass mason jars, get the shorter ones, get the widest mouths you can, and paint the outside with some kind of non oil paint, some kind of latex based paint that doesn't have a lot of, let them thoroughly dry before you put any cannabis in there. The whole idea is, oh, sorry, I slept horribly last night. The whole idea is that you want to block the light from hitting your cannabis in any way, except when you open it up and get it out, if you're going to store it for any period of time, and have the wide mouth so you can just reach in, pick one out, and there's not a lot of don't and banging this stuff around. So no on Boveda, no on those whatever hydration packs, whatever they are, humidity packs, I guess they're called, and yes on wide mouth situations. So, okay, what's a good way? Steven's got questions. Steven always has questions. I really appreciate that Steven has questions because it gives me something to focus with my crazy ADHD. So he's asking, what's a good way to keep our drying area below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 65% relative humidity? I think I'm losing a lot of terps to drying in the wrong conditions. 70%, 70 Fahrenheit, 65% relative humidity is like almost perfect. You're really not that far off. 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 60% relative humidity is honestly where I would try to shoot for if I was running a commercial facility. If I had someone I was paying, I'd be like, okay, we need to keep this room at all times exchanging air that is this. But 70, 65 is pretty good, Steven. So I don't think you're losing terps in that situation. 70 is right on the edge of when you start to evaporate terps, but I think 72, 73 is where they start to go. You know, I'm not sure. You're pretty close to perfect there. Maybe I don't know what the situation is in that room. I don't know what your cooling method is. I don't know any of that stuff. I would try to get the relative humidity 5% less and the temperature 5 degrees lower, or actually 10 degrees lower on the temperature and 5% less. Actually, 65, 60, 60, pretty close, man. 70, 65, you're right in there. So, you know, I don't know if you can get much better than that if you have an area that's holding those temperatures and that humidity, to be honest. So Stephen did ask me a question earlier this week, and I didn't answer him because I was waiting for this to say. I'm a big, jeez, I'm so sorry. I'm a big fan of leaving the root mass in the pot. If you had a successful run, you have your soil mites, your Stratiolaelaps simitis, and your nematodes, predator nematodes that are eating things up, and you had a good run. The hardest thing to do is get your predator populations robust, your bacterias and funguses working in concert. So if you have a good pot that you just harvested from, I'd say you cut off at the soil, the stem, and you leave all those roots in there, and you want to plant next to those. But I don't mean that you want to necessarily plant a seedling into that. And it really depends on what your grow looks like. Some people have beds, and maybe with a bed, if you have a bed, then you would probably want to put the plant in pretty small. But I would always at least go from like a 4-inch pot to around a 2-gallon pot before I transplanted into something like a 10 to 20 to 40-gallon pot. So that's just the plants like to fill the little pots with roots, and they grab onto the soil, and then when you transplant them, you make sure to slightly rough up those roots because especially if you're using plastic containers, the roots can sort of spiral, and if you don't break those up, sometimes they actually won't spread to the rest of the pot. So the idea is you sort of, when I say rough up, I don't mean rough up, I mean you just gently agitate the outsides, and a lot of roots will pop out. You'll see that a lot of root tips will pop out, and that's what you want when you transplant. So I would, if I was doing seedlings, maybe I might go a gallon first, and then, you could probably go seedling in whatever, like seed, maybe it's a small little um, pellet situation, maybe it's a plug, maybe it's something like that. That to 1 gallon to into your stuff is one way to do it. Another way to do it is 4 inch to 2 gallon to into your larger pot. But if you're doing organics, if you're doing um, you know, sustainable, um, biodynamic organic growing, you're going to want a bigger pot because you want to encourage those roots to get really big. You want to grow bigger plants. It's like I've said before, you don't harvest as much and you aren't going to get as much necessarily um, if you are doing uh, if you're doing organics. That's just one of those things. If you're not just force feeding the plants salts and such, then you're going to get a little lower yields. And I think there's some people that have real success doing a little bit of a hybrid system where they might use some salts, especially for some of the harder to replace nutrients, and then they're 85% organic. And if you're really concerned about yield, I think that's a good idea. I really like to let the plant select what it is going to uptake. And, I haven't gotten enough into it to know if, like, do I need to use molybdenum sulfate because that will give the plant a micronutrient that I can't otherwise give it. I haven't really gotten too much into that because, at this point, I haven't tested every pot and looked at what I'm missing. I did a more of a sort of a hippie organic growing. Um, Definitely, if I get into a commercial facility, there's going to be a lot of soil testing. There's going to be a lot of calcium, tons of calcium, but there's going to be a lot of looking at the soil, balancing ratios, using the various resources available about what kind of soil profile you want, and then tweaking that per plant or per variety because different plants uptake at different levels. So, all right, Ricky's in the house. That's good. That's good. So that's the thing. Transplanting, make sure you rough the roots up a little. And by rough the roots up, I mean just kind of agitate them, get the roots, get the little tips to pop out. Um, I like to go right next to a former root ball because I believe that, you give the bacterias and funguses and stuff a chance to just kind of establish right next to it. I know bacteria don't do a great job of moving per se, but they can like grow a colony, grow a colony, grow a colony, and then colonize. So I know funguses actually move really well through the soil. So that's how that works. Top dressing, that's part of this too because you've taken this soil and there's going to be some depletion in that soil because cannabis is a big feeder. And so you've taken your root ball and you've planted next to it. It's going to be off center in the pot. Probably plant your first plant off center and then maybe like on a triangle. That's how you might want to plant as you go through it. But top dressing is going to be important. And the number one top dress is earthworm castings, good earthworm castings, good high quality local earthworm castings if you can get them. Grain-fed earthworm castings in where he might be Oroville. I'm not sure exactly where maybe Chico is where he says he's from. He's from a little bit outside of there, but that's a really good example of high quality, small batch, artisanal worm castings. A lot of worm castings that you can buy in the nurseries and big box stores, the cheap worm castings are a byproduct of the it's essentially worms that are eating newspaper, sawdust, things like that. And those are those dry little, it's really dry. It isn't, it's just kind of not alive. So the highest quality earthworm castings have a little bit of muck to them because there is the worms aren't clean. They don't produce a dry, clean little pellet. They produce kind of a mucky soil, a little bit like it sticks to your fingers. It's really kind of and there's kind of a lot of calcium and some other micronutrients that are in the sliminess in that soil that comes from the earthworms. So high quality earthworm castings, number one. I'm a big fan of crustacean meal. and insectifrass, both of which contain sources of silica like chitin, chitin. So I would use those. Kelp is a great top dress. There is some controversy because some kelp contains high levels of some heavy metals. In fact, a lot of organic nutrients have high levels of heavy metals, um, relatively. Not sure if they break down that way or whatever, but that's something we should be keep our minds wrapped around. Um, I follow a guy on Instagram called Slow Nickel, and he actually sends off a lot of these amendments to for testing, and it's kind of common for them to come back with high levels of heavy metals. So we got to be a little bit careful. Um, the question is how quickly do the levels of heavy metals um, in the amendment, how quickly do those translate into the plants, and at what rate? So, um, what the best thing about cannabis is a constant learning situation, and and navigating the situation is part of it. So kelp can have high levels of heavy metal, but if you're top dressing, alfalfa is another big one that I really like. Alfalfa has beneficial enzymes. Barley has beneficial enzymes. These are the sort of things that, and when you top dress, one thing I want to make clear is that, so you have your stem, and then you want to top dress in a ring about 2 inches or so out from the stem. It's best to have a clear area there, so you're not, maybe alfalfa is kind of hot. It's like breaks down quickly, releases a lot of nitrogen. You don't want that right on the stem. You want that so that when you water, you're watering this stuff in. It's going down into the soil, not all piled up against the stem. So. Uh, um, but earthworm castings are, if you can only get one thing to top dress with, I would go with earthworm castings. If you run one of these pots and you put good high quality earthworm castings on it, you're going to get earthworms in the pot, and that's a really, really good thing. Especially the red wigglers, the horse manure worms, I think they're technically called. So top dress, that's my number one. It takes a little while. You have to kind of do it like 2 weeks ahead of time. You top dress um, once in veg, once at transition, once around 3 weeks, and then that should do it. And you can modify the amounts of what you're top dressing depending on the makeup of what the amendment is and all. Um, so Martha's here asking me if I've ever used banana tea. Food, I don't know quite what that means. Like that could be interpreted several different ways. Like there's something from the Korean natural farming called FPJ, which is a fermented plant juice, or FFJ, fermented fruit juice, where you would take bananas and brown sugar, and you would essentially ferment those in an anaerobic condition, and then use a small amount of that on your plant. So I have used one of those that someone gave me at one time, and it smelled kind of amazing. But I don't exactly know what you mean by banana tea. Um, so that would be my question to you. What kind of banana tea is this? Is this something that is broken down, or are you just taking banana peels and bubbling them in water? What do you mean banana tea? Because I'm interested. I'm interested in that idea. Um, so, Martha, if you care to type a little more about what your version of banana tea is, if it's not a fermented fruit juice or fermented plant juice, um, what is it? So, um, so back, I mentioned this earlier, but predatory nematodes and Stereolalaps simitus or hypoaspis mites are a must-have if you're going to have this kind of pot that you're recycling. You want a healthy population of these predators in your soil. And one thing that encourages that is a mulch layer that gives a place for the hypoaspis to hide. It keeps the soil moist for the nematodes. And believe it or not, one of the best mulches that I've ever come across is the cocoa shells. So this is something that, and it smells amazing, but this is a byproduct of the chocolate industry, and they just basically pile up all of their husks off of the cocoa. When they pull out the little bean, there's the husk that comes off the outside, and it's kind of hard. It's not hard like an almond or something, but it's like a little beany thing. And they have an amazing amount of bacterial and fungal activity in them. It is very common for you to almost immediately see white fuzz appear all over this stuff when you use it as a mulch on your pots. And that white fuzz is mycelium, which is a symbiotic fungus that works with the roots of your plant and is a good thing, a very good thing. They smell really good. They're good at um, fungus gnat reduction to a certain extent, although fungus gnats are kind of little bastards. But so cocoa shells, if you can find organic cocoa shells, I don't know if I've ever actually seen those, but man, I can't think of a better thing to use than that. So mulch. Don't use hay. Don't use straw hay for mulch unless. So if I was going to use straw hay for mulch, I would first put some alfalfa hay down and then the straw hay. Because if you put down something that is a lot of cellulose right on top of your soil, some of the bacteria that break down the some of the more tough to break down things in your soil and turn it into nitrogen that's readily available to the plant. Those will migrate up to this stuff and start attacking it. But because it's on top of the soil, it's away from the roots and all, it just isn't as efficient of a conversion. So you can actually, mulch your plant with a bunch of straw and then notice nitrogen deficiency because all of a sudden the little microbes that were converting the soil, parts of the soil into nitrogen for the plant have disappeared. So be careful with just plain straw. Um, Definitely, alfalfa has a lot of nitrogen readily available in it, and some other enzymes and such that come with it. That it's a buffer between the straw and the soil. But I'd highly suggest that you're using some kind of mulch in this situation. Even chicken scratch is a kind of a killer mulch, and I mean killer meaning that it actually helps to suppress fungus gnats. Chicken scratch is ground up granite, and it comes in various sizes. It's very light colored, almost a lot of it's white. So you get a nice reflective surface on your pot. It also keeps when you water it, it keeps the soil from getting disturbed and the top of the soil from moving around and when you water into it, it just right down into it's kind of a beautiful thing. So chicken scratch is also a really nice mulch itself, and there is some amount of bacteria that will break down the rocks like granite and pull minerals out of those. So that's another one of my favorites. So you're going to have your pot, you're going to have your root ball that you left, you're going to plant next to that. You've got your Stratiolaelaps semitis, or they're also called hypoaspis. You've got your nematode worms in there that are predators. You're going to top dress, and then you're going to mulch. And one of the nice things about the cocoa shells or having some is that the cocoa shell creates kind of a mat, like it like can congeals is the wrong word, but consolidates, that's the word. It consolidates, and so you can actually kind of get your fingers under there and lift it up and top dress underneath it, and that's what I would suggest. Another one is felt, the recycled plastic felt that they use for so many things. That's something you can cut to shape with a cut down it and a little hole for where the stem is, so you can lay it on the pot. That's a nice mulch, So you can come up with things that are doesn't have to be like garden mulch. Mulch is sort of a term for something that is going to go over the top of the pot and hold moisture in. The nice thing about the plastic stuff is it forms a pretty good barrier against those fungus gnats. But if you have the nematodes and you have the hypoaspis in your soil, those are going to go a long way to mitigating the fungus gnats because they love feeding on fungus gnat larvae, which is where fungus gnats come from. So just some basics on the pots that I'm encouraging people to grow in with the organic, the sort of regenerative style of growing. Um, so I hope that's useful to you all. My personal favorite for getting these insects is Evergreen Growers Supply, which is evergreengrowers.com. Um, some people say you shouldn't go for a third party distributor because you should be getting these things straight from the companies that produce the bugs. But a lot of times that's not so easy. You have to make big orders. So the people at Evergreen Grower Supply in Oregon are really good people. I've had many conversations with them. I used to live near there, and I drop in and talk to them. I know they're good people, and to me that counts for something. So if you're looking for these nematodes or the Strutiolaps, you can talk to them and they can hook you up on that. And they also do smaller quantities and stuff, and they ship quick shipping. They back their product up. If you get it and they're all dead, they'll replace it, that sort of thing. So love those guys in Oregon, in Clackamas, Oregon. Hope everyone's okay out there in my old home. Lots of fires, pretty scary. Santa Rosa is kind of the epicenter of the cannabis scene over there, and it's a lot of that's burning down. Pretty terrible. People are losing their houses. Hopefully not their genetics. I'm hoping they're not losing their genetics because they have a lot of good stuff out there. But Steve is asking me, aren't all cocoa shells organic? Well, no, because if they have a bunch of chemical fertilizer on them, that's not organic. Organic would be that they were the cocoa that the shells came off of were grown using organic methods. So, okay, so Martha's giving me some information here to work with on the banana tea. Thank you, Martha. I appreciate that. Also, welcome. I think I've seen you before, but it's nice. It's nice to see your face again. Taking bananas and putting into a pitcher with 2/3 distilled water, the peel, not the whole banana. Anyway, store in the refrigerator, add a peel every day for a week, then add water to dilute. Water plants with it. I've never done it. I Google it. There's different ways to make it. Yeah, that's interesting. In the refrigerator, um, stinging nettles are something that you can put in water and sort of do the same thing. But no, I've never used that kind of banana tea before. Um, I have little doubt that there would be benefits from that. Banana peels are high in potassium, which the plant eats a lot of. Cannabis plants eat more potassium relative to the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus than probably almost any other plant. I'm sure there's something, but I don't know what it is. I could see that being a deal. It seems like you'd want to compost it a little, but the fact that you're keeping it in the refrigerator um, is interesting to me. I don't have an answer if it's good or bad. I'm not trying to say it's wrong, but that interests me that you would keep it in the refrigerator. I wonder if you added some vinegar or something like that to it, if that might help break some of the banana down, or I don't know. I wonder what the pH is of that. I've got some questions about it, but um, I don't see how that could be terrible or even bad. Although I definitely would want to use organic bananas grown organically, as the peels tend to have more of whatever's been sprayed on your vegetables or whatever, fruits and vegetables, than the rest of the plant. So interesting. Try it. I don't think it can be. I don't think it could be bad. The fact that you're keeping it in the fridge keeps it from rotting, and that's the whole thing with the Korean natural farming is very interesting to me. But the more I learn about it, the more I'm a little bit wary of a lot of sort of willy-nilly anaerobic fermentation. I have a lot more faith in aerobic fermentation. Like compost tea, where you're adding a bunch of oxygen, because it tends to be, and this is not a perfect rule, but it tends to be that oxygen encourages beneficial bacterias and funguses, and anaerobic tends to the death merchants, the things that want to really break stuff down, the fusariums and those things. Those they like the anaerobic conditions. They like absence of oxygen. So I'm a little wary. I know that Korean natural farming, they've had really good some really good results in, especially in places where they can't afford any kind of fertilizer. So that's something that I'm not going to knock it, but I'm not also necessarily going to do too much of the anaerobic fermentation. It's just a little sketchy. I mean, compost and compost tea is already a little bit sketchy because unless you're actually testing it, and the only way you can test it is to genetically test the bacteria, because all bar bacteria look the same. All these various bacteria look the same, and you can't tell what they are unless you really look into their genes, which makes it a giant pain in the ass to know exactly what's going on. But I'm going to stick with aerobic methods for now. You know, yeah, I would love to see a side by side two identical clone plants, one getting banana tea and one not. This banana tea that you've described, and see if there's, is it anecdotal? Are they jumping to conclusions about the quality they're getting? Or is it literally like, wow, the one that's getting the banana tea is going crazy, and this one that isn't is just not thriving as well? That would be really interesting to me. So, I know one of the things about kelp is it's high in potassium too, so that's another thing that you might want to explore. We don't have a lot of kelp around here, but you can get it dried pretty easily. And most kelp is by definition organic anyway, because no one is farming kelp using chemicals that I know of. They tend to just harvest it out of the ocean, although that means that it's open to pollution depending on where it's being harvested. So you want it from a pretty pristine location. And are any of the parts of the ocean pristine anymore? That's a interesting thought to me. But yeah, let's see. So I've talked several times about. I'm just checking the old feed here and make sure I'm not missing stuff. Hey, there I am. It's my face. It's weird. Nope, looks like we're on track. That's good. Talked about aloe before. I want to talk about it again. Saponins are essentially a soap, a naturally occurring soap, and aloe has a lot of that. So aloe makes a great plant wash. Take a leaf of aloe, cut it into like-sized pieces, fillet off the green stuff. Now you've got like a gel, like a fillet of gel. Take that, throw it in a blender with water, spray that on your plants. It's hard to tell you. I don't have a scientifically backed proportion of that, but I know that it is beneficial for your plants. And even feeding the plants in the soil, you don't have to flay the green stuff off the outside, the leaf material. Just take the whole thing and put it in a blender and pour that on your plants. That helps. It helps. There's lots of studies about aloe being beneficial to plants. So, yeah, potassium and magnesium in bananas. I believe that. I do believe it. I wonder if there would be a difference if you would blend them and strain it out when you went to pour it or something like that, to try to get a little more into the peel. Who knows? Yeah, it's funny. You get this live feed here, and there's all of these like thumbs up and hearts like just happening, like it's some kind of bubbly party. But I don't believe there's that many people liking this or loving it. That's for damn sure. It's funny to me. Anyway, well, anyone got any more questions that anything I haven't answered? Anything along those lines? I see what's going on over here. That covers all the stuff. I guess the last thing I was going to talk about is ladybugs. Ladybugs are a really crappy solution to bugs. Ladybugs are, hey, it's me, Nicholas. Nicholas is on after me. and he does. I've seen some pictures of the cannabis he produces, and it looks really nice. Uh, Saw some things that look like cookie strains, which are okay, but man, those things just don't yield. So frustrating. But they look covered in crystals and beautiful. I'd like to have smell-o-vision. Nicholas is after me here at 8 o'clock, and has some knowledge of various things, and he likes to go into different subjects a little more in depth than me, on everything, instead of just sitting here BSing. Um, but talking about ladybugs, ladybugs are a bad solution. They're generally harvested in the Sierra Nevada mountains, because they congregate there. One variety of ladybugs that are native to the Sierra Nevada mountains, and you go and people are getting those shipped all over the country and released. They're not native unless you live in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So you're importing a species that's not native. You're encouraging people to disrupt natural nesting and uh, sites where these things congregate in large numbers. Um, and they're just kind of a crappy. I mean, if you have ladybugs naturally on your plants eating aphids, they can be very effective. Um, but I don't know if anyone's ever bought ladybugs and released them, and 3 days later, there's no ladybugs left. They've flown off. And I think they're trying to fly back to the Sierras because they're like, what the hell is this? So don't buy ladybugs to try to solve bug problems, please. It is not sustainable. There's an entire KISS Organics podcast about it with a professor from K State that they cover it. It's not sustainable. It's not natural. If you have ladybugs because you naturally have them in your area, you're good, but don't buy ladybugs. I would say the same thing about praying mantises. Um, uh, well, the problem, Nicholas, is that we're talking about ladybugs that aren't from the area, and so you are making them a home, and you're essentially encouraging a species that doesn't belong here to live here, that you had shipped here. So to me, that seems like a bad idea. Doesn't seem sustainable. Doesn't seem to go along with the regenerative sort of agriculture. Praying mantises are problematic that way too. I mean, I love praying mantises. Those are the coolest things. They're killer. The little babies do great eradication of bugs. But where did they come from? What species of praying mantis are these, or what variety of praying mantis are these? Are they from China? Are they from India? Where are they getting these praying mantises, and what are we releasing into our environment when we buy these and have them shipped to us? So having praying mantises that live naturally in your area on your plants is amazing. Having praying mantises shipped from some province in China, not so great. Lacewings are the same. Lacewing larvae are amazing predators. I've even felt myself being bit by them. They're so voracious. They're very, very aggressive. They patrol your stems. Fantastic. But where are they coming from? What variety are they? They don't even sell brown lacewings, which are awesome because the um, green lacewings, only the larvae eat insects. Brown lacewings, the adults do too. Another thing that I saw in the Sierras, I've never seen brown lacewings around here. I don't know, some things to think about. Why are you growing organically? Why would you be interested in regenerative methods? Um, what what is what's your end game? For me, it's like, A, I want to grow the highest quality I possibly can, and B, I want to make sure that I am not impacting the world more than I already am. I mean, if I have an indoor grow, I'm already using an insane amount of electricity to produce this flower. So, are there ways I can offset this by making good choices, being good to the earth, um, that sort of thing? So, I encourage you to think about those things. It's hard, it's frustrating. I mean, you want to just be like, oh, I got a silver bullet, and it's this. And, you know, um, if you're importing a species that doesn't belong in this area, I wouldn't call that a good solution. So I know I'm no fun. I'm a real buzzkill tonight. Yeah. Well, well. So I don't know. What are you talking about tonight, Nicholas? What do you got going on as far as your show? Wish there was more of a like now he talks and I could hear him, but I guess I can wait until questions start popping up. And I think I'm like 15 or 20 seconds ahead of when it's released. So it makes it even weirder to ask direct questions, Yeah, I'll just sit here and wait, like, but that's how we do in this day and age. Um, any more questions from anyone? Anyone got any problems they're coming into? Don't be shy. Uh, yeah, it's weird watching me like in the past when I look down at this Facebook thing. It's like very strange. Well, y'all, um, I hope that at 8 o'clock you tune in and check Nicholas out. He's there. Oh yeah, he's doing. Oh yeah, he's being very catty or coy. What is the word coy? What he feels is his secret to growing, um, or his key thing when growing. I think that should be interesting. I think that if I were to say, I'll piggyback off that, and if I were to say my key to growing, it would be to give the soil what it needs to create an environment where the plant can decide what it wants and grow optimally from that. That would be my key to growing. That and putting predator uh, worms and insects in your soil so you head off problems before they start. But really, it's creating a situation where you have healthy micro bio uh, microclimate in your soil, and your plant can do the rest because they're very amazing plants. They're very intelligent plants, and you don't need to feed them a bunch of chemicals for them to thrive. I think it's better to allow them to make their own choices. So, um, and I guess that goes into I've talked about it before, but it goes into the idea that the plant is exudates are the soil, the roots don't only just pull nutrients and such up water from the soil, they also exude certain sugars and amino acids in order to encourage um, bacterial and fungal populations to grow, like little, like, you know, like, hey, I'm making you your favorite meal. Don't you want to hang out with me? And this is in the rhizosphere, which is the area immediately surrounding the roots. The exudates come out of the roots. Some people say it's 25 to 30% of the plant's energy is spent just creating those exudates in order to encourage the right microbe populations in the soil. And if you think about that, the best thing you can do is encourage the soil, create a soil in such a way that it encourages the plant to, you know, make the best choices. So that's that. Um, well, I don't know what happened there. Like maybe my live stream just stopped or something. I don't know. Anyway, I think I'm gonna let you all go. I check out Nicholas's show. Feel free to send me DMs with questions. Um, I really enjoy being able to help. It's a big thing to me right now when I'm not able to grow currently. I will be in the future, and um, but for right now, just being able to help other people and to be able to get people who are beginners or what not on the right track. That's why I do this. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you. Peace.